I firstly would now take this session being the most important session to set the pattern for the day, that it's very important for us at this critical time to find out what is happening around the world, around Asia Pacific, and how the industry, government, and patient partnership is now trying to get us out of the pandemic situation rapidly, safely, and without further damage to our economic and social well-being. As is customary, Professor Preeti Sudham and Dr. Rennick will agree that we have saying that Atithi Devo Bhave, that the guest is God. And I will now introduce Dorothy Mickelson, President of Asia Pacific MSD first. Dorothy has been the president of MSD in Asia Pacific and is based in Singapore. She's also on the board of directors of US Asian Business Council, USABC. And in 2019, Ms. Mickelson was named as one of the 100 most influential women in Denmark. She's an executive ambassador for MSDs for Mothers for Children. So Dorothy has come through a comprehensive training to the pharmaceutical industry and dealing with some of the key issues, health issues globally. Next, out of respect of the great work, I introduce Dr. Preeti Sudham. Preeti was a former Secretary of Health and Family Welfare of India. And if you read her CV, she's that all-rounder captain that Indian cricketers always talk about. Somebody who has got insight into the great depths of health systems, but also has that common touch and has a very good link with the community and people, and has served at such a high level and in such critical areas. She's been there at the forefront, and I think I would now say that there is no way we could see such a personality and such experience retire ever, because thank you very much for coming at this right time when India really needs you and Asia Pacific really needs you. And lastly, but not least, I would like to introduce Dr. Satik Ranade, who is the Managing Director of Janssen, part of Johnson & Johnson in India. And as you know, they have been leading on some of the biggest developments in the candidate vaccine is waiting. There are other areas that Johnson has been really active, and I think the PPE area. I will, as a moderator, I would like to now start with the guest, Dr. Mickelson. Could you please tell our audiences what MSD is doing to help us with the COVID, and what MSD has planned for us by way of vaccines and other developments, and how MSD would like to strengthen its role in Asia Pacific. Dr. Mickelson, thank you.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you to IAPO for organizing this second Asia Pacific Patient Congress. As a company dedicated to saving and improving lives, MSD recognizes that we have a special responsibility to help. In responses to the COVID-19 pandemic, we're focusing on protecting the safety of our employees and their families, ensuring that our supply of medicines and vaccines reaches patients and customers, that we continue to contribute our scientific expertise to the development of antiviral and vaccine approaches, and that we're supporting healthcare providers and our communities. The pandemic is really affecting our world in so many ways and changing how healthcare is delivered. While our new reality will continue to be challenging and pose ongoing challenges, it's also providing important opportunities for the industry. For example, the importance of innovative medicines and vaccines has been elevated, and funding to healthcare in many parts of the world has been increased. Very importantly, stakeholders across the healthcare industry and even beyond are actively looking for solutions to improve patient access to innovative healthcare and interventions. So as part of that healthcare industry, we feel that there is a unique responsibility on us, and we're committed to playing a role to ensure that no patient is left behind. Patients are our purpose. Looking specifically at MSD efforts on COVID-19 during this pandemic, our manufacturing plants and clinical supply sites remain open around the world and around the clock. We're taking steps to ensure that that continues to be the case. So while supply and demand vary by product, we continue to have normal supply levels for most of our medicines and vaccines around the world. We have been committed to keeping our stakeholders informed of any important updates regarding the supply of our medicines and vaccines. Clinical trials are continuing. Driven by our steadfast commitment to patients, we're making every effort to ensure that patients in affected areas who are enrolled in clinical trials are able to continue the treatment and receive appropriate care and monitoring. As one of the very few companies that has continued to invest in both vaccines and anti-infective medicines, we know we have a special responsibility to help advance vaccine and antiviral efforts as part of our overall COVID-19 response. We know that success will require global collaboration among countries and companies and even beyond. MSD is advancing 2 COVID-19 vaccine development efforts and 1 investigational medicine for COVID-19. We're also in the process of bringing in 1 addition to the COVID-19 treatment pipeline. We believe that a range of medicines and vaccines will be needed to end the pandemic, and will continue to pursue multiple pathways, including an expansive internal research program and in collaboration with other companies. We know from our experience in HIV and Ebola that science and collaboration are both essential to develop medicines and vaccines in a global public health emergency. We also know that the path to a new medicine and vaccine is not necessarily fast, and it's certainly not easy. As was the case with many diseases, we are optimistic that our industry's effort will create new tools to combat the coronavirus. The pandemic underscores the need for our company and the industry to continue to invest in research for the greatest health threats. Turning towards global access, we are committed to ensuring global access to the COVID-19 medicines and vaccines we develop. MSD has a long track record of making our medicines and vaccines accessible and affordable globally, and we remain committed to do the same for the COVID-19 medicines and vaccines that we develop. As our COVID-19 vaccine development efforts are progressing, we are also scaling up our manufacturing capacity to produce hundreds of millions of vaccine doses. COVID-19 is a global challenge and it requires global solutions. And while the vaccines are being developed, we're engaging with a broad range of stakeholders working towards distribution approaches that enable equitable global access. MSD will continue to advance our COVID-19 research and also in parallel our other priorities. Since 2010, MSD has invested more than $60 billion in research and development. While our COVID-19 research and development efforts have quickly become a top priority because of the urgent need, MSD has the unique expertise and capabilities to continue to advance our research priorities in other areas as well. For instance, oncology, other vaccines, and other areas to address the continued threats from also diseases around the world. Our clinical trials are at the heart of our drive to save and improve lives. In 2019 alone, our global clinical trial operations team collected and analyzed approximately 250 million data points. They conducted about 100,000 on-site monitoring visits, and they supported more than 14,000 active sites. We recognize that we have a responsibility to address the needs of an increasingly diverse set of patients. And since clinical trial functions is kind of a gatekeeper to bringing effective new medicines and vaccines safely to all patients and communities, nowhere is it more important that we have diverse representation than in our research efforts. So it's essential that we incorporate patient input in every step of the journey. In the Asia-Pacific region, we have approximately 200 ongoing clinical studies across phases 2, 3, and 4 in clinical development, happening across 11 markets and involving more than 5,000 patients and healthy volunteers. The fact that the industry has been able to bring forward so many promising medicines and vaccines so quickly is a testament to the continued investment that we and others in the industry have made over time. The pandemic underscores the need for our company and the industry to continue to invest in research for the greatest health threats. MSD also commits to meaningful patient engagement. Our partnership with IAPO is a concrete example of how we find ways to collaborate with the patient community across the region to promote value of innovation. MSD partners with various patient advocacy groups in Asia Pacific to provide the necessary patient perspective in important stakeholder policy discussions on access to innovative medicines. One of our core values is that we put patients first. It is our privilege to work tirelessly with advocacy groups to identify the most critical needs of our patients and caregivers, and to ensure that we're responsive to those. This purpose is deeply embedded in our company's DNA. For more than 125 years, we have put patients first in the fight against some of the world's most daunting diseases, such as HIV, Ebola, and cancer. We aim not just to be a healthcare provider, but a partner in any particular patient journey. We are and continue to be focused on collaborating with stakeholders across different sectors to find sustainable solutions. From information dissemination of relevant medical innovations to equitable access to quality healthcare, including breakthrough therapies without suffering financial hardship. So in closing, in our discussion here today, we'll talk about how the efforts in addressing the pandemic will ultimately affect patient lives. Therefore, patients have a critical role to play in these discussions. Engaging patients in health policy decision-making helps to ensure that policies reflect patient and caregivers' needs. And finally, I would say that we as MSD are excited to participate in more dialogue like this as we continue the journey in finding viable and sustainable healthcare solutions for our patients. Thank you very much.
So this session is about journey in fighting COVID. What can patients expect? I think thanks, Dorothy, very nicely put what your organization is doing and really appreciate. Basically, I'd like to add another, tag to this session, which is what can patients expect and from whom? So basically, I think I'd like to speak on that the main stakeholders from what patients can expect is from the government, from the private health providers, from family members, from society, and from themselves, very important. And since health is a public good, I think the expectations from government and the government responsibility is huge. And if we outline what could be the expectations of the patients, then first and most important is access to reliable, timely, affordable treatment with access to differently abled also. So it has to be a comprehensive access. And I think in COVID times, yet we're talking about Asia Pacific, then I would say our area has actually done pretty well in that. The infrastructures have been repurposed. If I talk of India, then the way infrastructure has been ramped up for COVID treatment is really amazing. Today we have more than 90. We have ramped up 95 times in dedicated facilities, 151 times in total isolation beds, and 35 times in ICUs. So there are 15 lakh isolation beds with 2.5 lakh oxygen supported and 80,000 ICU beds. I'm talking only of India. And when I talk of Asia Pacific, then I think we've done pretty well in access to patient care. And next is, of course, the access to testing, where again, I think as a country, India has contributed. We've also sent test kits to other countries as well, because I think when we talk about this region, then helping each other is also equally important, because these are common resources. And that's what, as a country, we feel. And today we have, and I must confess that, the industry has come up in a manner which was never expected. The pandemic has actually brought in so much of innovation, so much of enterprise, and hats off to everybody who have collaborated, because it's only collaboration that works here. And we were actually importing test kits. And we were also importing for RT-PCR, quite a, what do you call, what's the technical word for it? The probes, we were actually importing them. And today we are self-sufficient. We have more than 2,000 self-sufficient labs. And we are also manufacturing RT-PCR and rapid antigen test kits. And they are all available on government e-marketplace. We are also exporting, as I said. And same for PPE kits, for the N95 masks. So hats off to the industry. I would like to acknowledge that. And apart from that, I think what the patients expect from government is also timely and correct information, because there's a lot of information asymmetry. Unless the patients know, unless the public knows that what's going on, because this is an evolving situation. So that is very, very important. And I think social media, and also, of course, on social media, there's sometimes misinformation and, fear also being spread. But most important is that the government should, and governments are, I know, taking action to spread information which is correct, which is up to date, and which is timely for the patients. Then next, what patients should expect and should ask for is that when in the pandemic, the medical infrastructure is being repurposed, then essential non-COVID services should not be compromised. And because the TB, cancer, and HIV treatment has to go on, you can't stop that, and that's another thing to expect. And of course, there should be very, very importantly, free and accessible helplines, whether it's for ambulance, whether it is for information, where to go, what to do, and if they are in trouble, then how do they take care of things. So that also, I think the government has and most governments have, and India, I speak for India, they have taken care of it. And also affordable medicines. When I spoke about reliable, timely treatment, I also said affordable. And I think generics is the answer. And there have been a lot of innovations and I would say very timely interventions from the private sector also. And that collaboration must go on. On COVID vaccine, of course, Dorothy touched upon that. And as and when it comes, governments are preparing for it. WHO has recently, yesterday, I think, issued a statement on also on who should get it and how should get it. As far as India is concerned, we are very proactive. There is a committee at a high level with member Niti and the health secretary who are going through all the complex dimensions of having vaccine, reach people, which means including cold chain, how to prioritize, how to reach people. And I'm sure that that will also be taken care of. Now, when I speak about what patients can expect from the private health providers, well, it's ethical treatment, it's affordable treatment, it's personalized care. And many hospitals did actually, during the COVID times, during the lockdowns that governments have been having, did set up, call your doctor facility, which was very, very important in my view. And of course, confidentiality to be maintained, because you see, patients want confidentiality. And option to buy medicines outside. I'm saying this because some hospitals insist that medicine should be bought from their pharmacy only. I think those are the kind of things. And also, I feel that in the private sector, it's important to keep on innovating, like Dorothy said, and research is very important. And when you are doing research, if your stakeholder engagement is there, it makes all the difference. And that's a very good thing. I'm trying to hurry up because I know there's not much time. Then when I say what patients would expect from society, well, first and most important is compassion. No stigma. We have seen that stigma has been attached to COVID patients, and that's what should not be there actually. So it has to be more compassion. Yes, we have to interact with caution. We have to ensure that social vaccine of masks, of maintaining adequate distance, of washing hands, all that is done. But that doesn't mean that you treat a patient like an absolute untouchable. That's not done. And of course, as a society, I think the best has come out. We've seen that there have been gurdwaras have given free food, NGOs have marshaled up a lot of support, and they have also spread awareness and information. And there have been steps even in the government for institutionalizing volunteerism, because there was a I Got platform which we actually got together, where if somebody wants to volunteer and help, what is it that they need to know? So there was this online training for volunteers also. And I think this patients should actually, and as a society, we should take it forward, because this is important. I'm sure this is not the first pandemic, or not the last pandemic. It's certainly not the first, not the last pandemic that we are facing. And of course, then what do they expect from family members? Well, our region is very fortunate. We have, the family system still intact. And so there is a lot of, I would say, protection within available within close quarters, understanding, care, empathy. But what should the patients expect from themselves? That's also important. I think it's important for the patients to be positive, to be well, to seek mental help if there is any distress or depression, to be grateful to the care providers, including the professional and the family and the society caregivers. And also, most important is to be kind to yourself, because it's sometimes we keep on battering ourselves. That's also important, that we should be kind to ourselves. So this is from my side. I try to be well within the time, and thank you for having me.
Now I'll ask Dr. Satek to point where what Johnson & Johnson has been doing is historical contribution to the very early pandemics. It's got a long history in the region, and its current innovative moves and the candidate vaccine, where it is and how things are coming along. Thank you.
Thanks, Kavaldeep. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure, and first I want to thank the International Alliance of Patient Organization for having me here. It's my pleasure and privilege to be part of such a distinguished panel, and I'm proud to be here representing Johnson & Johnson, a company that recognizes the challenge that families and their loved ones are facing in this unprecedented times. Yeah. So throughout a more than 130-year history, Johnson & Johnson has a rich legacy of responding during crisis, be it natural disasters or to disease outbreaks. We believe we have a responsibility to step in and invest in solutions for global public health crisis, and we have contributed to the global response to COVID-19. COVID-19, I think, as we discussed on the panel today also, is undoubtedly the biggest challenge humanity has faced in our living memory. Yes, we're all heartbroken by the lives lost and the strain on the health communities and systems. Countless people have been working tirelessly on the front lines and behind the scenes to offer the world a reason to find hope and inspiration. If I have to sum it up this way, in my 20 years of healthcare industry, I've never seen such a moment so rich in collaboration. Public health authorities, governments, private sector companies, research universities, and most of all the heroes on the front line of care are mobilizing in a way that current generations have never witnessed before. Dr. Preeti Sudan talked about the efforts taken by the government, and I wanted to really acknowledge that. The numerous steps undertaken by the government of India to stem the pandemic and to strengthen its vaccination program are laudable. Simultaneously, India's quest to partner with the world when it comes to drug supply and manufacturing of vaccines is truly appreciated. India has faced the COVID-19 vaccine with grit and a spirit of self-reliance, leading research, access to treatment, and testing. We thank the government for implementing such important initiatives, which will go a long way in putting India on a world map. Regulators, we have seen, and policymakers are working at incredible speed to streamline the regulatory processes and place new emergency measures to support the search for potential treatments and vaccines. Patient organizations such as IFPMA have played an important role in raising awareness, and I think that's so critical today as patients try to understand the various available diagnostics and tools at their disposal. As for the healthcare industry, I think Dorothy also spoke about that. Scientists and researchers are working tirelessly behind the scenes to discover and develop vaccines, therapeutics, and solutions to combat the pandemic. Let me quickly spend some time to just let you all know what Johnson & Johnson has done in terms of its multi-pronged approach to combat COVID-19 so far. For our part, Johnson & Johnson is partnering with global and local health authorities to address the immediate and long-term health care needs to ensure sustainable supply of our critical medicines, as well as to research potential vaccines and therapeutics. I wanted to give a case in point, and I spoke about the unprecedented collaboration I have seen, in this during these times, and I think Dr. Preeti Sudan also mentioned of that. Let me give a very good case, and I'm sure you all will be proud of what we have achieved together. As the COVID-19 infection started spreading in India, there was a dire need to ensure quick access to cost-effective and high-quality COVID-19 testing kits. Unfortunately, in April, India was facing the twin challenge of shortage of high quality test swabs and the high cost associated swabs imported from China. And to address this issue, this is again a great example of ingenuity. Someone in the Department of Pharmaceuticals actually approached Johnson & Johnson. They had this idea and they approached us to see if the company could indigenously produce testing swabs. Now we quickly sung into action and we worked with our third party manufacturer, who is a small scale media manufacturer. And you could see unprecedented collaboration. The Department of Textiles stepped in, Reliance stepped in to provide cotton swabs, and we actually provided technical know-how because of our earbud capacity, which we have. And we could start the production of these swabs on May 6, 2020 for immediate distribution to the healthcare professionals in India. So what typically would have taken 24 weeks under normal circumstances was made complete within a week at the fraction of cost due to shared vision, high political commitment, and unwavering support of all the stakeholders. On the vaccine front, I wanted to quickly update everyone, where are we? Our scientists are working 24/7 to develop a safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine using the validated platforms we have for Ebola, Zika, and HIV vaccine. We began working on the vaccine early in January, as soon as the coronavirus sequence became available. Our research teams have worked day and night to move forward the clinical program. And today I'm happy to tell you that we have two global phase 3 programs ongoing. The first global phase 3 program is Ensemble, which is looking at evaluating the safety and efficacy of a single dose regime of COVID-19 vaccine in up to 60,000 adults. And the second phase 3 program, which is Ensemble 2, is looking at testing the safety and efficacy of a 2-dose regime of our investigational vaccine in up to 30,000 patients worldwide. Let me tell you that at Johnson & Johnson, our ultimate goal is to provide global access to Janssen's investigational vaccine, provided it is safe and effective. Something which we are parallelly doing as our clinical programs are moving forward is, in order to enable a supply of more than 1 billion courses of vaccines globally, we are expanding our manufacturing capacity in parallel with the development of vaccine, and we have begun to plan production at risk. I'm very happy to let you know that we have recently entered into a collaboration with the Indian vaccine manufacturer, Biological E Limited.
Satek, you have a problem with your connectivity? Okay. Let's wait for Satek to reconvene. Dorothy, I think, let me come back to you. I think we have been hearing a lot of the MSD's engagement in the rapid global efforts to find the vaccines. And where are your efforts right now? I know you've made rapid progress, and it's really only days to get this confirmed. Thank you. Could you help us on that understanding?
Thank you for the question. MSD is advancing 2 COVID-19 vaccines in our development efforts, and 1 investigational medicine for COVID-19 treatment. And we also recently announced that we're bringing in another addition to the COVID-19 treatment medicines pipeline. It's a little bit too early to speculate about timing of availability. These vaccines and products are still in investigation in clinical trials. So given the urgent need, studies are underway, and we'll focus our antiviral and vaccines development and production capabilities, and mobilizing those as fast as we can through development, through licensure, working with regulatory governments, agencies around the world, and of course production scale up as rapidly as possible. But as you can't really rush science, it's too early for me today to speculate on exact timing as to when these medicines and vaccines could make the marketplace.
Thank you very much. I think one more question. I know we have been working with MSD so long, and I think your equitable front, the ethical, equitable front access has been a big sort of mantra. In fact, it's value of your company. How will access be ensured with this? I know we're in South Asia. We've got economies that are really well-off economies in the middle, and then the low and middle income economies. How would you plan that? That would be very grateful to know that.
Yeah, thank you again for that question. As you say, patient access to our medicines and vaccines is really our purpose. And we do have a long track record of making our medicines and vaccines accessible and affordable globally. And we remain committed to do the same when it comes to COVID-19. We believe in a value-based pricing model as a fundamental for our products that we develop that takes into account the direct medical expense of the underlying disease, but also the broader societal cost and benefit. And finally, we're also thinking long-term to sustain investment in research and development that we see is bringing forward so many promising medicines and vaccines for COVID-19 as quickly as it does. So that continued investment is important as well. So we're committed to provide equitable access around the world for our COVID-19 medicines, and we're working on those exact mechanisms as we speak, taking into account the unique circumstances of this pandemic. And as I said, building on our longstanding experience and commitment in other areas to responsible value-based pricing, allowing for broad global access and sustaining our investments in research and development.
Thank you very much. And last, before I go to Dr. Preeti Sudhan, the question that I can almost answer it myself. I've been in a lot of patient consultations with MSD. You have been asking us questions. We put forward people, various. So how is patient engagement lined up in MSD? I know you have done a lot of hard work, but I would like to hear it from yourself for that Asia Pacific patient, so we know how to work with you from here onwards.
So we put patient first at everything we do. We recognize that our medicines and vaccines are touching lives. And while we have many lives in Asia Pacific, we also focus on each and every one of those as Dr. Sudhan was referencing and talking about compassion, the broader family impact that we have in our region. So we are committed to continue that dialogue and to ensure that patients' perspectives are well represented in all policy discussions affecting patients and caregivers in the Asia Pacific region.
Thank you very much. Now I think I'll go to Dr. Preeti Sudhan. I think you've heard that industry partnership. One of the things during my discussion with you that came out was that you had really brought that patient perspective, talking about wellness. I think that was something that was missing in all equations. Could you just unmute yourself? I think you're muted at the moment. Dr. Sudhan? Okay. Yes, you brought wellness in. And I think that one really pleased me because at a personal level, I know as patients, we already have great worries about our wellness, well-being, mental health, social welfare. Could you please highlight that move? I think you mentioned a lot of innovative stuff that India is doing. I would love to share that with our group.
Yes, I think it's very important that wellness becomes a component of healthcare. We've always been talking about, treatment as a health intervention, but I think wellness is a very, very important health intervention. And in India, we have made a beginning with, thrust on promotive and preventive healthcare. And this has to be an integral part of healthcare as such. So let me give you an example. We have in India these institutes of excellence that we call AIIMS, All India Medical Institutes, where the best healthcare is provided. There also we have the wellness component. That means the patients are actually given psychological or mental, I would say, support. And also, yoga is taught. And this is also being done in our health and wellness centers that we call, which are actually not very far from where people's habitations are. We are planning to have, 150,000 of them by 2022. Already 50,000 are in place. where preventive screening for NCDs will be done, is being done. And also, yoga classes are given, wellness activities are taken up. There are laughing, those laughter clubs are there. And then basically, and also, the old women, the grandmothers come and speak to people about, come to speak to the community about the wellness of patients and society as such. So I think that's something which is also very important.
Thank you very much, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think the conference, I like. Mike Alzon, who is the MSD member of our committee, we've been talking about this, and he and I shared this whole overall vision that medicine was finally coming to society, in the sense that over centuries it has departed somehow. Now the societal roots of medicine are being rediscovered, and MSD and yourself, I think, have really done a great job on this, and thank you on that. I'll just go back to Dr. Satek. Sorry we lost you during that little break. I just wanted to put your...
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to...
hear me, Kawaldeep?
Yeah, we can, yes, yeah. So we just wanted you to say the final word before we go off, and just to say how Johnson has brought the societal aspect. Thank you.
Not really helping us today. I got dropped off, but I'll just conclude, and maybe towards the end, I would just like to say, I think Dr. Preeti Sudan did mention that while we fight, I think it's important for all of us to join hands together to ensure that the other diseases where, the service for or the patient care for other diseases don't suffer. So I just wanted to give an example of how Johnson & Johnson is also working very closely with the government to ensure that treatment to tuberculosis doesn't get disrupted. So just two case studies which I would like to quickly say. One is, we worked very closely with the National TB Elimination Program in Mumbai, and we launched teleconsultation service to help people, to help TB patients reach to qualified chest physicians, so that they can seek access to treatment from the comfort of their home. And the second example, which I just wanted to quote, was in the state of Telangana. We worked very closely with the state TB cell there to ensure that the sputum transportation and collection is maintained and ensured, in 5 districts. Some of the things which we are doing. So if I have to conclude, Kawaldeep, I'll quickly, sort of sum it up this way. First is, we must continue to make progress on this front and apply these learnings to address some of the most pressing healthcare issues which we are facing. Sense of urgency and greater collaboration between public and accelerate. We recognize this is an enormous task. This cannot be done by one, and we need all stakeholders, and patient organizations like yours are going to play a very important role in ensuring that everyone understands the patient perspectives, because at the end of the day, we all keep patients at the center of what we do. As Paul Janssen, the founder of Janssen, said, patients are waiting. We must harness the collective capabilities of stakeholders to drive optimal patient outcomes. Thank you so much, and that's my message. Sincerely sorry for the
no problem. Thank you very much, all the panelists, and I think you have really helped us shape the day. And do have a lovely day. And the audience who's watching us, please do go back to the second session. Sorry about the little break in the transmission during the early days. I think we all have this, and we'll have to learn, I think, and be adjusted. And Dr. thank you very much bringing that great insight that we needed. And Dr. Sudan, thank you very much. I think that I really love to hear what you had said to say. And we will now end this session, and then you can join us for the next session. Thank you, everybody.